الرحمن الرحيم.
سوف نبقى هنا كي يزول الألم سوف نحيا هنا سوف يحلو النغم موطني ذا اللباب موطني يا أنا رغم كيد العدا رغم كل النقم سوف نسعى إلى أن تعم النعم سوف نرنو إلى رفع كل الهمم بالمسير للعلا ومناجاة القمم فلنقم كلنا بالدواء والقلم كلنا عفو على من يصارع السقم فلنواصل.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Dear brothers and sisters, a lot is going on since we last met in this world. Gaza continues to bleed, and now we have criminals in India destroying historical masajid in the name of Hindutva, in the name of Ram Janmabhoomi, in the name of Ghar Wapsi. Many different terms are being utilized. In the Gaza side we saw Zionism, and now in the India side we're seeing Hindutva. If another ideology, as far as we're concerned, the same as it's just as alike as Zionism in its brutality and its cruelty and its history. So, in order to discuss this, the realities of what is happening to the Muslims in these two areas, very crucial, very important regions of the world. As you know, brothers and sisters, Masjid al-Aqsa or Palestine plays a very crucial role not only for the Muslims but also for the kuffar, as far as making sure that there is a hold of its interest in the region by making sure that this area, Palestine, now so-called Israel, in order to protect its interest, in order to protect its puppets, whatever you may call it. And on the other side, we have India trying to erase Islam and Islamic history from this region in order to again create a Hindutva nation. And of course, and before we go to the show, American interest in India is also the same in many ways. Protect India so that India can fight the good fight for America against China. In order to discuss this, we have two amazing guests today. We have Dr. Akmal, all the way from Pakistan, who will be discussing the politics of Pakistan and in relation with the politics of India. And then we have our brother Abdul Moqeet, who's been on this show. So has Dr. Akmal. Abdul Moqeet will be speaking, or giving us a glimpse of what is taking place in India and the politics of India, especially since the beginning or the anniversary of what is known as the destruction of Babri Masjid. Dr. Akmal and Abdul Moqeet, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair.
Salam rahmatullah. Brother Moqeet, I'm going to start the show with you here. Obviously, you are from India. You are in and out of India. Tell us, Sheikh, what is, and as you know, since we last spoke, I think that was, yesterday or the day before, we were discussing many issues regarding this show. Another masjid has been shaheed, and what I am aware of is, at least what I think there's quite a few masajid on the list that they have that need to be destroyed. Where is India going, Sheikh? And what is the future, at least of the Muslims in the region?
It's very telling. Where is India headed to? Is in the words of Modi himself, right? On January 22nd, when he was consecrating the temple being built on the debris of the Babri Masjid, he made a opening statement, and basically what he said is that this is not just any date, but it is the dawn of a new era, and everyone knows what it means, given where he was speaking from and what was happening. And it's in their words too. They have declared that their intentions is to declare India as a Hindu Rashtra, and this has been part of the Hindutva ideology ever since its inception. In the late 19th century, and continuing from there on. And this is again not to be forgotten, is a natural progression of secularism. The rise of Hindutva follows, and if you want to go into details, we can go over there. But this is primarily where things end up in when, under secularism, the majority are the ones who make the rules. And in order to manufacture a majority, you create these polarizing issues, try to consolidate, build your vote bank around these issues, and in a sense, Hindutva found a perfect tool to bring its idea into the mainstream, and now on the verge of what you can call declaring India as a nation, or what again, Hindus, where everyone else who follows a different religion, in Muslims primarily, are second-class citizens. And what you see with the destruction of the Babri Masjid is that it was enabled by by the Supreme Court of India in 2019, when they handed over the land of Babri Masjid to a trust, and for building a temple. And the Supreme Court is the so-called protector of the Constitution, and they have set a new precedence. And this is what you are seeing, as you mentioned, about the new Gyanwapi Masjid, where now they have begun performing the Hindu or their religious ceremonies. So this is where it is at this point.
Dr. Akmal, I'm going to start with a new look, here's the thing. Pakistan was created 1947 or 1948. Babri Masjid was still, it may not have been destroyed, but Babri Masjid and what was happening with Babri Masjid was this issue was there. It was the British that had created these sentiments between both the Muslims and Hindus, and even they were the ones who created this even the idea that Ram was actually born in this area. Now, here's the thing. Pakistan split. Pakistan saw that, okay, look, Muslims, at least some Muslims, they said, we can't live in this environment. We need to make sure that we are independent, that Islam is implemented. Sheikh, now we have Pakistan, and where are we going, Sheikh? There is Muslims in the region have been split. The power of the Muslim has been split. You have a nation, you have Bangladesh, you have Kashmir, you have Pakistan. And then even amidst all of this, the Indian government has the guts to say, we are surrounded by Muslims, but we can destroy masajid inside India.
I think so. You have pretty much nailed the point itself, that the whole illusion of secularism, or if you want to call it liberalism as well, that it allows the people to be able to be free to to aspire, to dream, to be free to actually go ahead and implement an idea, an ideology, irrespective of the surroundings, is actually a deception. These, unless and until we do not address the world order, the international order itself, unless and until we do not address the all different tools and mechanisms that are designed to extract conformity from member states, we will never be able to actually practice, implement, and be free to, I would say, use Islam as an ideology. So this is a very important point. I mean, even though we are using the term that we were free or we became free in 1947, we only shifted from one phase of colonialism to another phase of colonialism, where we were, we just moved from one barrack or one jail cell to another jail cell, and nothing else happened. That's a very important aspect to understand. We have all these different terms that, okay, Pakistan became independent in 1947, or the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, or the victory of Taliban in 2021 in Afghanistan. But essentially, what we ended up was getting another jail cell within the international order. We have another jail cell. Usually the cells are numbered. Cell number right now, like in Pakistan, they have Imran Khan, prison number 804. So instead of having cell numbers, we have names. We call these cells Afghanistan. We call these cells Pakistan. We call these cells Iran. We call these cells Egypt. We call these cells Turkey. These are cells, jail cells within the international order. And you have these tools, whether you call them IMF, FTF, ICJ, Security Council, United Nations, and all those different conventions and organizations that are there to make sure that the dictation followed exactly of the victors of the Second World War, whether it's Britain, France, America, whosoever. So this illusion should be, first of all, addressed, that we are free to practice Islam, that we are free to make decisions as per the dictates, injunctions of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed as a mercy for humankind.
Sheikh, let me ask you something, Brother Abdul Moqeet. Look, Babri Masjid is surrounded by Muslim countries. I mean, literally Muslim countries, other than China on one side, but so is Masjid al-Aqsa. What can you draw from this? I mean, both masajid, both very important to the Muslim as their identities. Both of them are being targeted. Both of them, behind them is the United States. One is using Zionism as an ideology in order to do what needs to be done. The other one is using Hindutva. I mean, fine. I mean, look, Dr. Akmal is saying we have to address secularism and we have to address this. But Muslims, what happened to the Muslims? Where is the response from them?
I think just to underline the point Akmal, Brother Akmal is making, everything goes back to the concept of nation state, which underpins this entire world order today. And this concept, it traces back to the Westphalia Treaty of 1648, and it was something that actually unified or brought about peace in Europe. But when it in the Muslim lands, it was imposed upon the Muslim Ummah once it, the Khilafah was destroyed in Istanbul, and then the Muslim lands were divided into the states that we see today, weak, given to infighting, and a political elite that whose interest were tied to the colonialist. Until today, what we see today happening to Gaza and the inaction of the Muslim rulers should not surprise us. This is this is the latest chapter in a long history of treachery that the Muslim Ummah has seen because of these nation states, and that's exactly why the colonial powers establish them, and also they continue to carry on the policies, including the Zionist state, because they know that none of these states will come to the rescue of the Muslims. And what is happening, and there is definitely a connection there, right? I mean, the question always, I mean, the Hindutva represent the Hindutva ideology, which Modi represents, is watching that the entire Muslim Ummah has not been able to come to the rescue of the Muslims in Gaza as they are being slaughtered by the Zionist entity, which is being broadcasted in real time on our screens, and there has been no response. So this is kind of a green light to them that they can get away with whatever they can. And Babri Masjid is just just shows you that they don't fear the Muslims today, because they don't have to.
Exactly.
They are already shackled under the concept of nation state. And there is an elite whose interests are entrenched in defending and protecting these borders, and not to protect the interest of Islam and its sanctities.
Fine, I understand that. But here's the thing, Dr. Akmal, when it comes to the Muslims of India, look, I think one of the mistakes, somebody can say somewhat, Hamas might have made a mistake saying that, look, after maybe 1,000 killed, 2,000 killed, 5,000 killed, 7,000 killed, 10,000 killed, somebody was going to come to rescue someone. Maybe it was a miscalculation. Obviously, now you're talking about 30-some thousand people killed. There is now some type of a peace treaty, some type of ceasefire being talked about, discussed, on the backs and the blood of 30 to 40,000 Muslims killed, and maybe close to 50,000 Muslims injured. Which also could be complete removal from the land and be thrown out in Sinai. What should the Muslims of India learn from this, Sheikh? I mean, there is no Pakistan coming. There is no Bangladesh coming. Should the Muslims of India think we are alone and it's us and Allah? What should be the thought process in the mindset, in the minds of the Muslims today in India, Sheikh? Especially seeing what they have seen in Gaza.
Exactly, I think so. Gaza, first of all, Gaza is not a mistake. It's not a miscalculation. I mean, the moment we put a price on freedom, we lost the freedom. The moment we're ready to say that, okay, I cannot sacrifice my job. The moment we say that I cannot sacrifice my business, the moment we say that I cannot sacrifice my life or my family, the life of my family or the life of my loved ones, I'm a slave. The moment I put a price on my freedom, that's the point from which onwards I'm a slave. And alhamdulillah, I mean, the people in Gaza, the Muslims in Gaza, they've proven or they've shown that what it means to be, or to live with dignity. And this is the basic, I think so. This is the basic message. There is no price for freedom. And if we keep on compromising, it's just like, first question is put in front of us is about just opening one button. And maybe we are discussing about that what's harm? What is the harm, in just unbuttoning one button of the shirt? But that one button would result into us being naked. And this is what has happened exactly in India. Since 1857, I would say, or since the day the British set foot in India, we have been compromising. We have been giving them lands. We have been adopting their ideas, their ideals, their civilization, their philosophies, how to solve our problems. And we have surrendered the sense of righteousness, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sharia. And today we do not even have the confidence to say that I have a solution to address the problems of the world. I mean, it's not only about the people of subcontinent. It's not only about people in whether it's like UP or Bihar or Salhat or Gujarat or any of those areas, but we're talking about the whole world itself. We kept on surrendering one after another vital issues of the Muslims. And today, they are not demanding only our masajid. They're demanding Muslims to become Hindu.
Ghar wapisi is
They're forcing us. So where is the right line? You even had the chairman of the Imam committee or whatsoever come on to the Babri Masjid and declare that okay, we all are together and the best approach is about humanity and we need to be humanist and we need to be this thing and that thing. That was a deception to begin with in the first place. We are surrendering each and every article of faith that we have. What is the bottom line? I mean, that's the decision point, I think. So the Muslims anywhere in the world, they have to make today. What is the bottom line? Even in France, the passion of liberal world itself, they ban our sisters from wearing hijab on the pretext of secularism. So where's the red line? And that's what we have to decide. I mean, Gaza, the Muslims in Gaza, they showed basically what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be brave? What does it mean to be courageous? It's easy to surrender. That's why nobody remembers the people that surrendered.
No, but Dr. Akmal, here's the thing. I understand. But look, I think people are also looking at realities, right? And Brother Abdul Moqeet, you can answer this too. People are looking at realities of Kashmir. I mean, Kashmir did struggle. They struggled for a very long time. But then they kept, they kept struggling. And then, look, you are dealing with human beings at the end of the day. I mean, right? I mean, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's two ways to look at this. One, the Muslims in India could say that, look, we thought Kashmir will go somewhere, and then here we go. We thought Muslims from somewhere will come and help. They didn't. Whatever. Kashmir is now split. Half in the hand of India, the other Pakistan. Gujarat happened. 3,000-4,000 Muslims killed. And Modi is now the president or the prime minister of the country. And Netanyahu, who's a killer, who's committing a genocide, is another leadership. Is the leader of Israel. Do you think that the Muslims are looking at this thing and saying that, look, we have nowhere to go. There is no one coming. I guess I'm looking at, can we, is this I mean, could this become a paralysis issue where you're just paralyzed?
I think it's very important, and this point has to be understood by the Muslims, is that the fatal mistake that was done is to accepting secularism as the model to live under. And I mean, I think this is a moment that we need to revisit and rethink and understand from our mistakes, right? And if you look at what secularism stands for, and if you go and look at the books, and I was actually reading a book by one of the scholars called as Mutahida Qawmiyat or Islam. It's a very telling book about on what basis were Muslims told to accept this idea of being in a secular system. And you see the arguments being so, weak arguments being made. And one of them is you can see the way internalizing that Islam is something of like a religion, just like Christianity, with no and somehow that once the Khilafah is destroyed, that we can live without practicing Islam in our private lives, meaning that we can live by just following a part of our deen. And this is the fatal flaw, because what has happened is that, and this is what the last, ever since independence, 75 years and over 75 years, has shown secularism cannot guarantee the peace, security of not only Muslims, but also non-Muslims. And this is what we are seeing being the trajectory that India and the Muslims in India have been going towards. And Kashmir, as you brought up, also is suffering from this problem that we are living under a secular system that was established by the colonialist. This is, by the way, even the Hindutva actually say that they don't believe in secularism, or at least that's what they say is that, and that's why even the constitution, which is always referred to by a lot of these Muslim leaders, that we are upholding the constitution. The constitution has been basically put on the side when it came to the protection of the Babri Masjid, whether it has been protection of the Muslim property and life throughout the 75 years, not just by the current party of BJP, whom Modi is leading, but also by the Congress party, which in fact has been ruling India for the most of the Indian. The existence of the Indian state. And that's pretty much one of the points that we have to really understand and make our call for, is that we cannot anymore continue to repeat the same mistake and putting our hope in the secular system. And Muslims have to make their call for the Islamic system, which was the system that allowed all Muslims and Hindus together in India. That's the history of India. And by the way, this is the history that is manipulated and used by the Hindutva to present the Hindus as victims of Muslim rule. But if you look at the history of India, nowhere, even before Muslims, Hindus were never unified as they were unified under the Muslims. Politically and administratively, and that's
fine. I'm going to come back on that. I'm going to come back on that question regarding what's possible in India and what's not possible. But Dr. Akmal, here's the thing: 1857 happens. Independence, war of independence, and things like this. The class that was thinking, which the ulama class, let's call them that was making some decisions that were very crucial, that could have actually saved what the subcontinent looks like today. But Deoband, for instance, they did they not understand secularism, Sheikh? I mean, was this something that they were? What happened? They couldn't realize what secularism is. That they at one point basically accepted it because of, okay, fine, we want to be in India, even though there's a huge struggle, 10,000 or so ulama are killed fighting the British, and then all of a sudden there is this idea that, okay, as long as you allow us to just protect the so-called sciences of Islam, we will be happy with the conditions that, the environment, that as long as we're able to do this protection of the sciences thing. And then they were just given an area called Deoband, and they were happy with that. Until today, I guess that's the question to you, is that have they realized that mistake, and do they realize the consequences of that mistake that we are paying for today?
There's so many different dimensions of this question itself. I just wanted to address a point from your previous question before I move on to this one. Time for nations, it's not measured actually in years, it's measured in generations. If we look at when first we lost the first Qibla, the Masjid al-Aqsa and its surroundings, was 1095. It took 3 generations. Imaduddin Zangi, him fighting the Crusaders, and then his son Nuruddin Zangi, he fighting the Crusaders, and then it was one of his generals, Salahuddin Ayyubi, that was able to liberate Al-Quds again from the Crusaders. Almost 100 years. And during those 100 years, there were untold massacres and untold atrocities committed against the Muslims in those territories. But it was this commitment of the ulama, it was the commitment of the people, it was the commitment of the rulers to the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to understand that these are occupied lands and they need to rescue them. First crusade and second crusade and third crusade and fourth crusade, it happened wave after wave. I mean, the Europeans kept on coming wave after wave. And they were called crusades because the Pope, the Christian popes, declared them to be religious wars. They obligated their people to participate in those wars. Imagine at that time for us to think, what is the price? Oh, we need to, somehow give up, do this thing, that thing. We need to coexist. We need to be. Look at the whole issue of the Mongols, the Tatari, Yalghar, or if you want to call it. It took us almost 100 years to deal with them. But there had to be a realization of that, okay, this is a horde that is demolishing our civilization, and we need to resist. And this is the exact point today we have to decide. And that's what happened in 1857. It was under duress. We have to recognize what we see, the brutality today in Gaza, or the brutality today in India with respect to Kashmir or wherever Muslims are. This is not happening in a vacuum. This is what was, I would say, put on our necks. The British, like Brother Moqeet mentioned about the division of Muslim lands after the First World War, sometimes we forget about our history itself. Churchill was the war minister in Britain at that time. It was his plan. He devised a mechanism through which he can actually control many Muslim lands. Britain was under a lot of financial pressure. They were not able to keep a large army, so they more or less disbanded a huge section of their army, built many small little states within the Muslim countries, Iraq, Sham, Jordan. You had the Al Saud come in as well, and all of those other places, and put in place over there from a single family, one son of Sharif Hussein in Iraq, one son in Sham, one son in Urdun, in Jordan, and send the father to Malta, bring in Al Saud into the Hijaz or into the Arabian Peninsula. And the idea was, if they pressurize one part of the family, they would be able to pressurize the whole family. They pulled out troops, but built airports. Any area, any city, any region, if there is a rebellion from that place, they would bomb it, they would gas it. What you see today happening in Gaza, 50% of all standing buildings have been demolished. There are controlled demolitions even after that. From aerial bombardment right now, the army is going in and destroying universities and mosques and hospitals through controlled demolitions. But this is what has been happening with us under the colonial rule of France and Britain. This is not something new happening. We have to understand that.
But the Sheikh,
And
but here's the thing, Dr.
let me just complete the argument. Let me just complete the argument because it's very important. That's what the ulama in this region kind of concluded, that we are too weak to resist the British. It's too brutal. It's too inhumane. Any moment we try to resist, the toll is actually too much to bear. And we need time to prepare. But that was the first button for us to, unbutton. We gave up resisting. We gave up, our freedom. We said, okay, let's accept slavery for the time being because we're too weak. If we try to resist, the price is too brutal. It's too high. But we had to recognize, we had to understand that freedom does not have a price. And this is the realization. Yep. It's been more than, it's now close to 200 years since 1857, right?
Yep.
And we have not been able to come out of that fear that if we try to resist, if we try to move for our freedoms, we're going to pay a price. Yes, there's a price. But that's what makes us different.
I understand that, but look again, Moqeet, you can jump into this if you want. Look at this, brother Moqeet. Look here's the thing. I mean, I still need the answer. Maybe they said, okay, fine, we don't have resources to resist anymore. But look, the realities are today. Syria. You look at the so-called Arab Spring. Syria was dismantled and destroyed in ways you cannot imagine. And eyesight from day one, if in many ways. All right. I mean, Egypt was crushed in many ways. Tunis was crushed in many ways. Libya crushed. It is brutal. It's not that it's not brutal. It is brutal. I mean, you're talking about killing in Aleppo happened. I remember now we're using Gaza, and we're comparing it to many bombs like, Dresden was bombed this way and so was bombed this way. Aleppo was bombed like Germany was bombed. I mean, people were making those comparisons. So it's clear that the brutality is that, look, the moment they try to raise even an inch of their head a little bit higher, we are going to crush them in ways that they will be put behind for at least good 50 to 100 years. Now, in this environment, what do you expect? What do you want? And give me a way out of this. That you're talking about people who we don't have governments. We don't have Nuruddin Zanki. We don't have Imaduddin Zanki. Even Saifuddin Qutuz had someone. I mean, there was no. We have nation states today. Saifuddin Qutuz did not have to deal with nation states. I mean, we are in a prison, both mental and physical prison. And the worst is that these darn borders that we see today are even worse than mental prisons, for God's sakes. So tell me, how do we get out of this? What is the solution to when you look at why Muslims for the last 12 years trying to get out of this, these shackles, when are treated in such brutality? What do you expect them to do? What should they be doing? Do we continue, or what do we do? Is there a strategy?
See, and as Brother Akmal pointed out, right? I mean, we have to pay the price and we have to sacrifice, right? The issue at hand is the same issue that was there in 1857, which was to remove the British occupation and to bring back Islam into authority. This was the focus and the goal of 1857. Yes, there were different routes that we were distracted by. What has happened, there were attempts made. We can call them feeble, but they were attempts made. But it does not change the fact that we have to make the call, and we need to bring back Islam into authority so that we can resume our Islamic way of life and be able to solve our problems according to Islam. For too long, we have outsourced organizing our affairs and running of our affairs to the kuffar and to those who are doing it according to the kufr system of secularism. This is the problem. This is, it's absurd to accept that your haqq and its protection can be guaranteed by kufr. And this is a problem we are dealing with today. What is secularism? Secularism essentially means that you keep your deen subservient to man-made laws. And that's exactly what's happening in India. The state, the man-made constitution tells you are allowed to practice such and such, but you're not allowed to practice this. And you go along with it. That's a problem. And today you see the nation-state model itself, even in the Muslim countries, is the same, right? I mean, this is what it's telling them. Islam tells you to come to the aid of your brothers and sisters and rescue them. This is a key issue. Yet, you see none of them. In fact, you see these states, they are not keeping silent or being quiet. They are actually coming to the aid of the Zionist entity. And this is a point of, retrospection for the Muslims is what are we today? Our states are not just coming to the help of our brothers and sisters and to defend those things that Allah has established as sanctity. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the blood of a Muslim is more worthy than the Kaaba itself. And yet you see how much lives have been lost in Gaza in the last 120 days. So this is where we are at, is that we have to really unshackle ourselves, do a bara from these nation-state models, and make our call to bring back Islam, the Khilafah state, because that's the only state that does not recognize this these artificial lines in the sand, which are being imposed upon us by the international order. It is capable of standing up against this international order and offer the world a new alternative. And this is what the world is looking for. And this is what that's the only way Muslims can not only solve their problems, but can actually take up the real position that Allah has given them, the khulafa min al-ard, the ones who run the affairs of the world. And this is where we have to be. The moment we stop thinking like that, we will become, and our condition will become like what it is today.
Dr. Akmal, to what he's saying, let me ask you, Brother Akmal, Brother Abdul Moqeet is saying, I mean, let's put it this way. Somebody could ask, is the brutality because the West is in crisis? Because the only thing that the West has realized, the only way to crush, the only way to fight back, or the only way that it can stand its ground, it seems that it just has to kill. I am not seeing any more an ideological argument by the West. If there was any ideological argument, it seems to be been buried in Gaza, in the ashes. What does this say to you? That is the West, has it become bankrupt?
I mean, it is a clash of civilizations. And the sooner we realize it, better it is. It's nothing less than that. And I just want to point out that when the last time this clash of civilization happened between the East and the West, between capitalism and socialism, it was socialism that was erecting walls. It was preventing its own people from knowing what the West has. And the only claim the West had was, okay, come and see how we live and judge for yourself what is better, socialism or capitalism. This time around, even though we don't have a state, even though Islam does not have a state,
today,
Islam does not have, a setup, a framework where it's being implemented and being shown to the world what does it mean to live under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And West is erecting walls since September 2001. Whether it's the Patriot Act, whether it's all those different legislations and immigration issues and problems, and they're erecting walls after walls, preventing their own populations from understanding Islam. But it is right now, even if you look at Gaza itself, it became a point for people to study Islam. That what gives, the strength to women and children to be able to bear such an atrocity. This is a very important point right now. This is, again, it goes back to that issue that we have to recognize that we are not in it together. Look, when the British came into India, this has been one of the most successful, I would say, strategies or mechanisms that Britain has used all over its colonies, wherever it went. Whether it was in Malay, they made the Muslims and the Chinese fight amongst themselves to get the attention of the overlord or the colonialist power, the British. When they came into India, they made the Muslims and Hindus fight amongst themselves in order to get you can say, or I would say, make the British become a judge between their fight. And that's how it gave them the upper hand. They went into Palestine and made the local people, whether it was the Muslims, Arab Muslims, or the Christians or the Jews, fight amongst themselves, and Britain became the overlord over there. They went into, if you look at the African countries, whether it was West African countries or East African countries, they made the local tribes, the local, ethnicities, the local religions to fight amongst themselves, keeping the Britishers, keeping the Europeans as the custodian of justice and the custodian of civilization and blah, blah, blah. Even right now, if you look at it, Israel came in with aircrafts, F-16s, with tanks, with missiles, with bombs and everything. And what was the response from the Muslims? They went to ICJ. Do you see the mismatch? One country is mobilizing its military. And we saw, even in the past, don't we remember East Timor? Don't we remember South Sudan? Don't we remember, the 32nd parallel and 36th parallel in Iraq when Kurd separatists and the Shia separatists were being protected by the international order? So establishing a no-fly zone is not something against international norms. Helping people that are being oppressed is not something against international norms. But we have to understand, it's only for, all of these are only whenever it is for non-Muslim people. Whenever there are Muslims, whether they are in the Central African Republic, whether they are in Chechnya, whether they are in Burma, whether they are in Sri Lanka, whether they are in Thailand, or India, or Kashmir, or any part of the world, Bosnia, Kosovo, no. The international order is to keep the Muslims down. You have been talking about Dresden. I'm just waiting for them to talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And the brutality is...
Exactly. They've been justifying their atrocities by mentioning Dresden. And I'm just waiting for them to move another notch and start talking about Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Are we still going to be quiet? And as you mentioned, I mean, one of the things that, okay, the weakness
The
within
world
this
was
whole
quiet, Dr.
international
Akmal.
order-
Dr. Akmal, here's the thing. The world was quiet. I mean, the world was quiet. I mean, we're talking about it.
What's the question? No, the point is, what is the world? Do we consider the victors of Second World War to be the world? The veto power wielding countries in the Security Council to be the world? There are 210 countries and territories in the world. And each and every country is disgusted by what's happening in Gaza. What world? Why don't we see the whole colonial construct? Why there are only 15 countries in the Security Council? And why there are 5 permanent members in the Security Council? Where's democracy? You know, why cannot, I mean, just like in the General Assembly, when a resolution about the Gaza issue was brought, how many countries voted for ceasefire and against ceasefire? How many? How
Majority
many
were
abstained?
against ceasefire, yeah.
There were there were only a handful. You can count them on your hand. Out of 210 countries and territories that are signatory to United Nations, you can count them on one hand, the people that abstained. And we're talking about the world? No, this is not a world. This is a colonialist construct in which these great powers, if you want to call them great, I'm not sure how many of them are great still, but whether it's the US, Britain, France, these are colonialist powers. There is no world. Under what pretext? Under what United Nations laws? Under what type of legal framework US and Britain are bombing Yemen today?
So here's the thing. I mean, when you look at...
Do you understand? I mean, this whole issue? There is no such thing as an order, as a law. It's only about what you consider to be a red line. We as Muslims, are we ready to define red lines? Or we're going to keep on seeing our countries, our lands being dismembered, our people being slaughtered? We'll keep on moving on from one tragedy, from one atrocity to another atrocity? You mentioned Syria, you mentioned Yemen, you mentioned Libya and Tunisia and all those places. We keep on moving from one atrocity and just waiting for another one to happen?
But who do you blame for that, Sheikh? Look, I'm not saying we're waiting. We have been waiting. It's been 100 years. But here's the thing, though. I mean, how do you address is the intellectual decline? What is it? Is the Muslims... Look, what do you want the Muslims to understand? I mean, they don't have the time. Look, the way the colonial systems the system has been working is that 95, if not 99% of the people in these lands are hand to mouth, who are trying to put food on the table on a daily basis, and they go home not sure if they're going to come back home. I mean, you know how Karachi worked for the longest time. People would sit on buses and say, they would say, I've heard people saying, Salaam alaikum, I don't know if I'll see you tonight. This was Karachi for the longest time. And this is Syria today. This is, America has decided to buy, airstrikes today in, I think, on supposed Iranian interest in Syria and in Iraq. I don't know what that joke is, but that's as if it's not been bombing for the last 50 years. But Muslims, what is the problem with us, Brother Abdul Moqeet? What is it that we don't see? I mean, videos, millions of videos are being passed around and of naked men being, I'm sure you saw the latest video that came out of Israel. Men were stripped naked and put their hands tied and I mean, what else should the Muslims see? What is it that's missing in their mind that there's a button that needs to be pressed?
As I said, Right. I mean, the Muslims have been put into a, I mean,
Coma.
disconnect the history. They have been disconnected from their deen in terms of. I mean, you go to the masajid. What is being talked and discussed is as if nothing is going on. I mean, you still see because of
No,
what's
that's what I'm
happening in
saying.
Gaza.
Have we lost our humanity?
Yep.
I think the point to be noted here is that, right, I mean, what are we missing as a ummah? Where we need to get to is that what is missing, and this is of the most, it's an issue of life and death. We need to start understanding that what's happening in Gaza is not a test for just the Muslims in Gaza, it's for us. We need to start thinking as an ummah, not as a nation state or an identity that the colonialists have imposed upon us. And what it means is that as a Muslim ummah, what should be our response? What our deen has an explanation for everything. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the life, blood, property, and honor of a Muslim is sacred, He did not just leave it as an idea. He gave a solution for how that needs to be protected. And that is that the Muslims unify behind an imam. And another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the imam is a shield behind whom you defend and protect yourself and fight. And this is what, and this is just a translation of that hadith.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Abdul Moqeet. That's what I'm saying. Who's seeing that? Where is that imam? Look, here's the I understand that, and I know what you're saying, but here's I'm sorry I'm intervening here, but what I'm asking is that the generals in the Muslim armies, the armies themselves, the leadership of the Muslim armies, or the leadership of the Muslims, I don't know what that means even, the cartoons, do they not have humanity left in them? Forget about Islam. Is there even humanity where you're talking about women and children slaughtered for the last, 3 months and 10 days? Who are we talking to? I mean, I guess this is, United States is out for blood for 3 soldiers killed and about 23 soldiers injured. Soldiers. I'm not talking about innocent people, and I'm not talking about, 30,000 people slaughtered. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about 3 soldiers and 24 or 25 soldiers injured. U.S. is dropping bombs across whatever. Are we? Where does that come from, Sheikh? I mean, I think.
Yep. And subhanallah, I just came across an ayah from Surah Ra'd, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just a summary of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that whatever you do, it doesn't matter whether you do it in light or you do it in darkness. It makes no difference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that the generals or those who have the authority to come to the aid of the Muslims, every second that they are allowing what's happening in Gaza or anywhere in the Muslim world. By the way, Sudan, you see the kind of displacement that's happening of Muslimin over there. All of those things are going to be recorded against you. And believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who put you in those positions of power, and He is the one who can replace you. And you are, every moment that we are, I mean, it applies to everyone at every level, with our tongue, with our hand, with our position, whatever ability we have, we are going to be held accountable, because everything that's happening today is going to be recorded against us. And we better have a reason, an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where our call has to become first, is sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hoping in victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, and as we discussed, right, I mean, the price is huge, but the ummah has stood up. I mean, we should not take it away from it. What's happening in Gaza, the kind of, slaughter that has been imposed upon them is something I haven't seen. Yet,
Gaza has.
Gaza, that's what I'm bringing. I know.
But
Yes,
here's the thing, Dr. Akmal. Here's the question to what Israel is protect. Let's in India for now. India is being given a political cover, is being given diplomatic cover, just like Israel has been given both diplomatic and political cover in order to do what it's doing. And behind both is America, United States. American interest in the region is to protect India, or at least make sure that you bring India to a point where they can go, they can stand against China. Usage of Israel to keep, a khanjar, if you want to say, a knife behind, that makes sure that the Muslims stay divided. Can India use this political and diplomatic cover to create a Gaza-like situation for the Muslims? And number one, is this feasible? And number two, would India want to do this? Would this work for them? Is this something that, is this in the interest of India?
I'm just surprised you're using can. Isn't India already doing it? I mean, Israel has been using collective punishment as a deterrent. If a person is found to be guilty of resisting occupation, the whole apartment complex will be bombed. I mean, people will be given a 10-minute notice to get out, and they would just come in with, either bomb the place or put in, explosives and use demolition techniques to bring down the building. Isn't the Modi Sarkar doing the same thing? Wherever protests happen, they come in with shovels, they come in with cranes, they come in with heavy equipment and tear down Muslim homes and shops and places without any type of legal work, without a type of any justification. What do you mean? I mean, they're doing it. Look at what's happening in Kashmir. I mean, they're using already. Now, just yesterday, America approved $4 billion worth of armament for India, armed drones. I mean,
wow, I didn't know that.
What do you mean? What are we waiting for?
$4 billion
more would happen? I mean, $4 billion. I mean, the whole Pakistan army defense budget is almost equal to that. But what I'm just saying, I mean, what more should Modi or the Hindutva or the RSS or all of those different extremist groups in India itself are to do that we would say, okay, something's happening. They're tearing down our mosques. They're killing us just because you support a rival cricket team. You could be put in prison. I mean, what more needs to happen?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you, Brother Moqeet. I don't know.
Saying, there's a reason why you see there is a huge support that Israel, the Zionist entity, gets from India on the social media. It's because, and this goes back to the title of your talk, of this talk. There is there is a equivalence between Zionism and Hindutva in terms of a racialized supremacy that they propagate. And this is actually not too different to the Nazi, who they tend to present as a victim of. And if you go into the history, you see about Hindutva is that they derive their inspiration from Nazi. And going further, not to be forgotten that this was done under the rule of the British, the colonial empire, where they gave all this intellectual underpinning for the Hindutva ideology, presenting Muslims as invaders. This was all because of the way the history was written by the British to bring about the two-nation theory that they had been working on. right? And this is where they bought in that presenting Muslims as the invaders. Until today, you hear this in their statements, presenting the Hindus, which, by the way, is not even a religion, and a manufactured identity by the British underneath the colonial British. This identity is not something that existed before, which is basically defined by its hatred of Islam and the Muslims. What does it mean to have a common culture, civilization, and history, and presenting the Muslim era as being a foreign invasion and Muslims as foreign, and they have to be purified of foreign ideas and culture? This is all, not just the work of BJP. It has been done for the last 200 years. And this is the product that we are seeing today, right? And this is how, and this is what goes back to say to the point that, and Muslims have to understand that you need to have our deen requires us to have an imam, organize our affairs according to Islam, and present Islam as a solution. Today, it is being presented as a problem. And our history is being presented as whatever is convenient for the colonialist. And this is also, again, people say that we need to fix our education system and all those things, but it goes back. These are all symptoms. The root issue is that we do not have our affairs organized according to Islam behind an imam. And that's where our problem is today. And
Here's
that's
the
the
thing,
vital issue.
Dr. Akmal, I don't know if you know, and maybe even Brother Abdul Moqeet, you guys, anyone can take this question. As you know, Brother Sharjil Imam is in jail. He's been in prison for at least, I think so far 5 years now. Maybe could be longer. I'm not sure how long he's been in jail. But he is a young man. He's a engineer, I think, also a historian, a PhD in history, and both from a very well-known university. I think Jawaharlal Nehru. I think that's where he's from. But there was a statement that he made that cut the neck of the chicken, and that was that idea that North, the idea, the UP could be somehow cut off, and India could see an independent movement again. That Muslims in India could decide that they become, maybe, if you're not going to allow us to live as Muslims in this country, with all of your promises of democracy and secularism and this and that. Is this a possibility, number one? That does Indian government fear that pushing Muslims to the limits could cause a call for an independent state of their own? Is this viable, or is this something even the Muslims should call for? Maybe it's time. I don't know. I'm just... you have Khalistan movement going on, from the Sikh. You have a Kashmir situation going on. You have Manipur that's going crazy. The Christian minorities that are asking for their own rights, and you have. Is this possible? Do you think that there may be an independent movement from the Muslims, which is about 200 million Muslims in the area, maybe even 300 million? We can't hear you, Sheikh.
Very much.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, I mean, it's very much possible. I think the point, though, is you need to look. For instance, we need to be clear. These resistance movements tend to usually have support from outside.
No, forget about them. I'm asking as Muslims.
So, that's what I want to differentiate here, and even what you mentioned about Manipur and other places. There is definitely that element of resistance because of the oppression of the state, and that's very much to be expected. And that's why you see the way the Modi government has been slowly and gradually moving in this direction, and obviously it suits its ideological vision and also its economic and political interest. And so, for instance, you saw what happened after the NRC, which was basically declaring that about Citizenship Act that was passed, and what happened after. There were huge protests about that, and right. I mean, so the state is weak, and it understands its weaknesses, and it uses, and that's what Muslims have to understand, is that it uses sometimes ulama and Muslim political leaders in order to push us in a certain direction. And this is one of the ways they have been trying to manage because Muslims are not a few in number. They are almost 200 million, if not more, according to some of the census figures. Always they are understated, but this is where things are. But again, I think the issue is that the Muslims, we don't want another useless state. We want Islam to be returned back.
But how? I mean, with what? But here's the thing. It looks like an independent state calling for independence looks like more useful than because look. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that. Obviously, we want independent state and implement Islam there. Yeah, but why do you have to implement Islam under the Hindus? Brother Dr. Akmal, is this possible to actually call for Islam in a 300 million, whatever the population of India? Are you talking about a billion Hindus? I mean, I don't want to cook, because I want to discuss realities here. You're talking about a billion Hindus. Okay, Pakistan is useless. Bangladesh that is useless. Afghanistan that is useless. I understand what Abdul Moqeet is saying, that look, it's you don't want another useless state also again. But at the same time, the Muslims of India, what should they wait for? I mean, what? Just fight for what is what I'm saying. Call for Islam. You've got a billion Hindus. They don't want Islam there.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the basic issue. I mean, we have to, first of all, come back to what we can actually take pride in. What
Islam.
We have.
But what I'm saying, why can't you call for a state that wants Islam?
Yes, exactly. That's where I want to go. Aren't there enough farmers committing suicide because of the interest-based whole system? Aren't there enough farmers resisting and actually protesting the capitalistic, market-oriented type of policies that are being enforced upon them? I mean, the whole liberal world order itself, even within the microcosm of Indian, agricultural domains in all different places, they have their own fissures. Capitalism itself has not been able to solve problems in France. People are protesting in the streets, whether it's the yellow West people or the weird 99% or whatever.
But you're expecting a billion. Hold on, Sheikh. Hold on. You're expecting a million army, 2 million, whatever army Pakistan, India is, that they're going to allow you to have Islam in India. But next door, you have a country next door with some whatever millions of armies that cannot implement Islam.
There's a whole assumption. There's a whole assumption that India is one homogeneous population.
It's not. That's what I'm saying. Separate.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What makes us more suitable, because we are bringing something that is just for humanity. What we are bringing is actually something that has failed to solve humans' problems. We need to have the courage to say that. If we are going to keep Islam only as a religion, just like a Hindu goes to a temple, a Christian goes to a church, and a Muslim goes to a mosque, yeah, that's a problem. But we're saying is that we have solution to people's problems. Irrespective of a person, whatever religion he belongs to, we have a solution.
But we haven't been able to show that in Muslim countries, Dr. Akmal.
Yes. That's what we're. That's where I would say we as Muslims, especially the intellectual class, especially the ruling class itself, we're suffering from AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Intellectual AIDS.
Is this a new disease?
It's an intellectual age. You know,
I don't have the doctors for that. I don't know if there's any antibiotics for that, but hey, go.
If I can add,
that's
right?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
If I can add, I'll just bring this, right? I mean, look, at the earliest, I mean, I will go two events, right? Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, and this is not, by the way, even when the Muslims were in authority, when he noticed the weakness in the rulers in Delhi. Shah Waliullah Dehlavi was a scholar who, at the time of Aurangzeb and after. Actually, he was. He was in the period where the decline of Mughals happened after Aurangzeb, and he actually invited the ruler from Afghanistan to come and take over, because he noticed the weakness in the leadership of the Mughal ruler and how it will be allow the enemies, there were a lot of enemies who wanted to kick out the Muslims at that time, the Marathas, the Rajputs, and all, and the British. Okay, so and this was the solution even at a weakest point. If you go and look at Mahmud Hassan Madni, who was actually, and this goes back to our talk about the role of the ulama. Ulama did try. It's not. I mean, I'm not saying. Like Mahmud Hassan Madni, he was the one who was the Reshmi Rumal Tehreek, which actually was planning to invite the rulers from Afghanistan to come and take over, to fight and remove the British occupation. So what I'm saying is that this is what is required. The people in India are suffering. They are divided, and this is exactly what you see today is actually a failure of the state to take care of the affairs of the people. So they have distracted the people from poverty, unemployment, oppression, corruption, and they have focused everything on that. Now we have built a temple and we have declared India as a Hindu Rashtra. And that is what they are, and also it has this is a slippery slope that they are on, right? And as we were talking about, there are several divisions amongst them. For instance, right at the temple, I just want to showcase this, right? When the temple was inaugurated, at the time, there were 4 top Hindu priests who did not attend it because of the disagreements on a issue of the law. They felt that the temple was not ready for Modi to even consecrate it. So the point is that they have several divisions and differences amongst them. Right now, they are unified on the Muslims, and that's why they are able to push forward. But the solution really is that the Muslims to bring back the system of Islam and come over and take over these lands and establish the
Brother,
is that Islam only.
I agree with you. No one is disagreeing that, look, obviously I'm a Muslim, you're a Muslim, we want Islam. There's no discussion is not this. The issue here is what should the Muslims of India do?
Yes, so to that point, yeah, they have to make the call.
I'm asking, why is it the Muslims of India can say, look, fine, we can try, things fail, Pakistan maybe coming along, who knows, once they figure out how many, I don't know what they're trying to figure out still, but let's say, can Dr. Akmal, is India, when you are sitting there in Pakistan, I'm going to be on some show after this one too, but here's the thing. They keep using me for different shows, man. I don't know what it is. They like to watch the show a lot, and I see why. Look at this. This is probably one of the most liveliest discussions you can have talking about becoming independent, bro. But here's the thing: can India break?
Very well.
Now, I'm not saying somebody coming from outside as far as Islam. I'm talking about. Is India without you? If Indian Hindutva, hold on. If you can answer that right after that, let me just so that you understand where I'm coming from. It almost seems that India or the Indian government is using Hindutva to keep the lower classes, the upper classes, the whatever classes that they have, to keep the country together in the name of religion, in the name of some building that was somewhere, whatever it is. And this is seems to be that's how far that's the level of their intellectual prowess, to keep the people together. If this falls apart, this argument falls apart, is India on a verge of breaking apart in the name of, of Khalistan or anything else, if Hindutva fails?
Man, if Catalonians in Spain can go ahead and demand for a separate country, Quebecs in Canada, Irish in England, Texas in America. I mean, India is far below there. I mean, it's not really a cohesive state, just like America, England, or Italy and Spain.
Look, if I can add,
go ahead.
Look, India before the Muslims too. What was it? I mean, don't go and look at the Hindutva wash, or actually the whitewash, because the British built it out, right? I mean, the British washed history of India. They make it sound like it was hunky and dory before, but really they were all small kingdoms. They were fighting amongst each other. From the north, there's a huge north-south divide, east-west divide within India. You go when you go talk about anything, there is nothing to unify them, right? It was the Muslims who unified them politically and administratively. The British took over, okay, and the secular system was set up because the British realized. By the way, we need to understand the two-nation theory and the construction of India and Pakistan was a British project. Right? I mean, yes, we are not looking at what the Muslims wanted and all. These were British projects. Secularism was used because there was no other way British could bring everyone together. There were divisions across caste. There were divisions about the beliefs. And what now Modi is doing is that, and he has hollowed out the constitution guarantees that were present and that allowed all these different interests to agree on to this state. So, he has made the focus that it is a conjured up Aqidah, which is the Hindu Aqidah, whatever it is, I don't know. It's except that it's anti-Muslim. That's pretty much what it is. And it cannot take them further. But for us as Muslims, this is not what we are waiting for. These divisions exist. They are on a slippery slope. They will, Allah knows best, but they are going to be on the verge of more divisions. But for us as Muslims, the issue at hand is that we need to bring back the system of Islam and take over the lands and establish Islam, because that's the only way, what we like, people can coexist and live together and under the justice of Islam. There is no other system.
We have few questions. We have about 5 questions that we have to ask.
Please allow me to complete my argument.
Go ahead.
I just want to complete my argument about age. Before that argument kind of like is lost. AIDS, I mean, basically it means acquired immune deficiency syndrome. There's a virus that enters into a human cell, especially that is responsible for the protection of the human body from all foreign disease, right? Here, the virus is secularism. Under secularism, we declare all religions to be equal and for all religions to be treated equally. Secularism does not allow any religion to declare themselves to be above another one. That's the virus that prevents us, or that is the disease that is ailing us today.
Meaning what? Truth can never emerge. There's no.
Exactly. We have to recognize our position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us as shuhada ala nas. We are the custodians of the affairs of the humanity in general, all across the world. we need to come up, we need to actually bring back that confidence for us to be able to say that, yes, I have a solution. Yeah, even like Brother Moqeet is talking about, yes, we need to have a state. But even before that, wherever we are captives, the Muslims in the occupied Palestine, they're captives. The only thing they can do is protest. October 7 was protest. The Muslims in India right now, I mean, they're closer to being captives. But they have a huge mass, up to 300, 350, 250 million. We're talking in hundreds of millions of people. And they have to leave this captive mentality. They have to come back to that mentality of being victorious, of being confident.
I mean, we are from there. We are from there. And this is the idea that I think we are from there. We are, I understand.
But that disease, the thing that has brought back Hindutva, secularism. We have to recognize the disease. As long as Muslims would keep on calling for secularism, it will only result in further decrease of the immunity system, within the age itself. It's going to keep on increasing. We have to get rid of that virus.
After all, it was the Muslims who came up with the COVID virus, it seems. I like that. I like that. Okay. I gotta get those. And they were Turks. And they were Turks. That's very important. No.
Right.
Anyway, I heard the brothers who came up with that. They were the Turkish family, it seems. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. All right, let's go to the questions here. See, at the end of the day.
No. You're talking about the cure. Yes, the cure was
the cure.
Not
Muslims came up with the cure.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm talking. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it had to come from the Turks. The Muslims, I guess. All right, let's go to the questions here.
They came up with the cure.
Yes. We always come up with the cure, and that's the issue here. But this discussion, though, although of the independent Muslims wanting independence, this is something that I'm sure there are people who are looking into. But here's the thing. Let's go to the questions here. We have 5 questions. Go ahead, Brother Zain. Let's put the questions up. Oh, I guess we have more. Okay.
Oops. All right.
Okay, so the question from Abdul Rahman: why do we only talk about political action in terms of raising awareness or looking for someone to handle our affairs for us?
I hope this is not how we sounded in our discussion today. What we are saying here is that Islam has a solution, and this is a solution that we have to work on, right? And which is to, as Brother Akmal was talking about, we need to first build our mindset correctly that we are standing for Islam and nothing but Islam. That means we negate and reject the ideas that are presented to us, right? Which is being ruled over us or governed over us, which is secularism. And of course, we need to start thinking as a Muslim ummah, and we need to call for our, the establishment of the Khilafah states that can again resume the Islamic way of life and allow us to solve our problems according to it. Just to add one more point, our situation today is that we are not able to act because we don't have this entity, the state, that would allow us to act and protect our sanctities. Like as I said, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the imam is a shield behind which you defend and protect yourself and fight. And this is what we need. And until then, we will continue to face the problems that we are facing. Because and that's what the kuffar also are. The world is showing it to us that we don't have that. We have armies, we have weapons, we have human capital, we have everything. Yet we are not able to take care of and come to the aid of our brothers and sisters in Gaza.
No, but
on the other place.
But Dr. Akmal, should the Muslims of India be waiting for that? I mean, would that be? Look, here's the
No,
thing.
no.
I think, and let me add a question to this here. The thing is that I think one of the again, I know you answered that earlier, and I'm not saying that this was a mistake or this was not, but I think the Muslims in Palestine did think that their Muslim brothers and sisters would come to their aid, and it did not happen. It did not happen in Bosnia. It did not happen to Rohingya. It did not happen. It's not happening to Uyghur Muslims. So I think, and for the Muslims of India, would there be naivety to think that somebody's going to come to their aid?
No, look, that's what we are saying, right? I mean, look, who do we expect victory from? Who do you think the Muslims in Gaza are expecting victory from? We are expecting our victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah,
this
but
is
Allah
the key point.
subhanahu
And
wa ta'ala
what
said, "In tansurullah yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum." It's not the other way around.
We have to make our, and that's all we have to make sure. We are making our stand on Islam, hoping in victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is it? This means we have to reject secularism. We can't say that we are going to call for voting for the next political party to hope to bring about a change. That's not going to happen. 75 years of our history of this state has not allowed you to gain any of those things. It's stupidity, and you are denying it at whatever level, right? And this is a moment that we have to understand. We have to first purify our positions. What are our solutions? What is our solution? And this is where I am saying that we have to, as an ummah, call for it as strongly as we can. And of course, our solution is that we as an ummah have to come to solve these problems, which means we need to have an imam that will allow us to move our armies to solve and take care of our problems that require an army. That does not require.
What do you think, Brother Akmal, here? What is the? Because I understand what you're saying, Brother Abdul Moqeet, but I just want to be more practical, to be honest. And if not, I think the Muslims of India would become very like sitting ducks, for that matter. I mean, it's like saying, just pray, somebody will come.
That's what today Muslims in India are not allowed to pray Jummah prayers.
Yes, they're not allowed to pray Taraweeh. They're not allowed to make adhan in many, many places. They're not. I mean, what in the world is going on?
They're not allowed to be outside the building of a mosque itself. If they require more space, to make stuff in the streets or something like that, or even in grounds. It's not only about streets or something. Even on the ground, they're not allowed to do that. Something that had kept, I would say, the deception of secularism going was the Muslim law, the Muhammadan law. Right now, they're directly talking about it. I mean, Moody said, how is it possible that in the same country, same people have two different sets of laws? What's the bottom line? What's the red line? I mean, that's the question. When they would say enough, I mean, right now, today they have said, okay, the rules about talaq and divorce, okay, there needs to be some kind of a universal law for that. They have prevented Muslims and Muslimas to marry themselves, to become like, to have a marriage in between them. What's more, personal, even than marriage itself, even from ibadat? That's a very, very individualistic action. Ibadah, prayer. You're not allowed to do that. I mean, what more could be there to say enough is enough? I really don't have
let me take some more
answer.
questions here. I understand. I see what you're saying. Let's go to the next question, Sheikh. What steps could Muslim communities in India take to strengthen themselves in a concrete way?
Again, it's just repetition, but I think Muslims have to learn to the victorious mindset. We need to be able to defend ourselves, defend our sanctities with whatever we can. Rasulullah, we know from our deen that the one who dies defending his property, his life, his sanctities is a shaheed. And this is what ultimately, as a whatever capacity, if we are talking about, we have to make our stand, and we have to stand firm on our deen and our sanctities, and then we will hope from the victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is key. And we are seeing this, happening in front of our eyes in Gaza. This is an inspiration for the Muslims everywhere, including in India, right? How you stand up and you do not give in, and whatever be the price. Because at the end of the day, we are here to attain Jannah, not attain another day to live.
Next question.
Jazakallah khair.
Right now, Hindutva is only recognized only when Muslims are deemed or suppressed, or demonized, I guess you can say, or suppressed. Otherwise, Hindutva has no identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what it is. If I understood if, as I mentioned earlier in the talk, right? I mean, Hindutva is a manufactured identity, and basically it is defined by its hatred of Islam and Muslims. Pretty much that's what it is, and referring to a so-called mythical culture, language, and religion. That's what Hindutva claims to go back to. Which again, we talked about how everyone has a different idea about what that means. So there is nothing to unify amongst these leadership. In fact, one of the things that the VHP, which is one of the components of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, they utilize these issues like the Ayodhya Babri Masjid to build a common basis with other Hindu sects across India. And that's why there is, at this point, they were successful to gain their support with regards to building this temple. Again, as we talked about, this is only because of the hatred of Islam and the Muslims.
What do you think, Dr. Akmal? Any comments on this?
I mean, see what we stand for. I mean, right now, I just mentioned about how Modi even talked about the Muslim personal law. Islam allows all communities to have their own court system for their own marriage issues and family matters and all those type of things. There's not a country in the world. There's not a country in the world today that would allow any one of their own communities to have their own courts, their own laws, to manage their own family affairs and systems like that. This is what we're talking about. This is Islam. It doesn't mean that, okay, if Muslims come to rule, that, okay, every person has to go to a mosque, or every temple would be converted into a mosque, or everybody would be made into a Muslim. We ruled India for 800 years, and still the majority of the people are Hindu. I mean, that's the confidence that we need to bring forward. We need to be in this position where we are able to make a stand, and this is where not only the political, the ideological aspect comes out, at the same time as a community. We need to think as a community, to think about our own defensive mechanisms as well, that how can we defend ourselves? That's something that is very important, because whether it's the secularism of Yugoslavia, of Tito, it didn't protect the Muslims. Whether it is the secularism, within whatever type of community you want to pick up, whether it's under the Russians, under Yugoslavia, under Thailand, under Sri Lanka, under India, each and every time these systems have failed. And Muslims have to think and remember that unless until they don't depend upon themselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no protection under secularism.
The next question, please. Hasn't division of India into three countries allowed today's India to become the Hindu country? Hasn't creation of Pakistan allowed the Indian state to exist?
Exactly. That's the unfortunate outcome. It was the Muslim population that got divided into 4 or 5 different cages. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. Whereas the Hindu majority got concentrated, the Muslim population got divided.
Can this be a strategy, Sheikh? Can this be? I guess I'm.
Yes.
Can this be a strategy to say that maybe India and Muslims of India might come to a conclusion that their only solution is to separate from India?
No, why? Why should we? Why should we give
No, I'm
up
saying
upon
can this be pushed
other
when you say
billion people, human beings in the area? They're our responsibility too.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what it is, right? I mean,
Right?
yeah, that exactly. And this is where our mindset is that we are here to take care of the affairs of entire humanity. And the point, going back to the divisions of the Muslim, they are external powers whose interests are to divide Muslims further and further, and they are interests that want to keep India unified and united, despite the weaknesses within itself. And and this is where the issue is that they have, and this is because of the interest attached to having India unified and the Muslims weak and divided. That's why you see those three differences.
Let's go ahead. Next question, Sheikh. Is there a potential for unification to start in Afghanistan and expand from there? George M.
Possibly.
Wow, that's the shortest answer.
The real thing is, we have to recognize and the framework and the platform that would allow the people to unify. Secularism does not allow that. Nation state does not allow that. The current world order does not allow that. It makes it almost impossible for any two people to come together. It even becomes impossible to keep a country together. You have to pour in billions and billions and billions of dollars in order to do that. Otherwise, countries break up and they fight over resources and stuff. So we have to recognize what would be the platform, and only Islam. Only because what Islam does, it takes away, the sanctity of majority. Secularism is built upon the sanctity of majority. That okay, whatever the majority says is sacrosanct. What Islam says, no, even if it's a community of 10 people and they have a right, they can establish from what Quran says and what Hadith says. It will be a right against, whether it's 250 million people or it's 1.5 billion people. Because the rights are established to what Allah says and what His Messenger has said.
All right, let's
what could be more liberating than this?
Go ahead, Sheikh. Next question.
Yep.
Would you please shed some light on the Khilafah movement, and is the movement going on until now? At Kinai Kayoshi.
No, regrettably, if you're talking about the historical Khilafah movement that was launched during the First World War, this was a movement at that time that allowed the Muslims to politically organize and unite and to be able to more or less, I would say, press upon the British government of that time. And after 1924, it was disbanded. So that's the historical context. Today, still there are people working for the Khilafah, yes.
Next question. It says, no, the guest is wrong in his understanding of the independent movement in India. India as a reality of state is huge, so won't allow it and is not feasible. I'm not sure what the question is.
I think maybe he's talking about India is, because of his size, able to take care of any kind of divisions or things like that. If that is the thing, just to point out, how much effort there are so many places where the Indian army has been deployed to fight off secessionist movements in India, in the Northeast, and even Kashmir, Ladakh, and other places too. And they have not been
Tamil Nadu.
Yes, and they have not been successful in that. And so it goes to say that those movements are there, and there are several others that we can't list, but they have not been able to defeat them and get rid of them. That shows you the weakness of the state. The reason why India continues to exist the way it is that it is in the interest of the foreign powers to maintain its geographical integrity at this point, territorial integrity. And that's pretty much what it is.
Okay, so we are reaching almost 2 hours, so I think we have to. But subhanallah, I mean, the people were engaged, people are listening. But let's stop here. But just, Sheikh, no more than 10 seconds from both of you guys, inshallah. Dr. Muhammad Akmal, if you can start. 10 seconds. What is the message to the Muslims of India?
We have to return back to Islam. This is what has helped the Muslims in this area to create the most successful within the whole Indian history, the most successful period within the human history, almost, I would say. We were producing 27% of the GDP of the world, right, under Muslim rule. This is what Islam gave us. And we have to return back to Islam. Islam is what would unite all of these people, would solve their problems. Secularism, liberalism, nation states, all of these are only delusions, only tools of oppression. The only freedom is Islam and nothing else.
Go ahead, Sheikh Abdul Moqeet. 10 seconds.
I mean, despite all the situation that the Ummah is going through in India and anywhere else, I think this is a moment for us to understand that Allah is preparing us for victory. And this is where we are at. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this: no matter how much the kuffar try to extinguish the light of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to perfect it. And we see that today, that this is a moment for us to perfect and make our stances and our positions and stand up for His deen. And again, I come across this ayah in Surah Ra'd. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. So we give victory to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We stand up and willing to pay whatever the price is to protect and defend the sanctities that Allah and our deen has established upon us, and Allah will make us victorious. And we are we are nearing victory, inshallah.
Bismillah ta'ala. All right, brothers and sisters, with that, this was an amazing discussion. A lot to dissect still. I think we'll have to at least call the guest back to discuss the situation inside Pakistan. There's a lot going on inside Pakistan also. You have Balochistan situation very heated up. And the role of Afghanistan in all of this really matters. And of course, Pakistan being having one of the largest, if not one of the toughest and the strongest armies in the Muslim world. So it has a lot to do, and it has a lot of responsibility that it needs to responsibility that the whole Muslim world is waiting for it to take. That, of course, goes for Egypt. That also goes for Jordan. That goes for the rest of the Muslim world. But, of course, there are certain places the Muslim world are eyeing and saying, for God's sakes, move. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may use you to be the ones that will give you the key of Masjid al-Aqsa. And with that, I say, brothers and sisters, Wallahu ghalibun ala amri, walakinna aksara an-nasi la ya'lamun. وجزاكم الله خيرا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Next week we have Muazzam Beg, amazing brother that talks a lot about what's going on, especially in the UK. As you know, different political parties are being banned there. We have a very specific discussion on that. So make sure to you continue next Friday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Salam. Jazakumullah khairan, brothers.
لا لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر. لا 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 لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر.
صبح بدا نور ظهر، نجم وشمس وقمر، ألقى على الدنيا الدرر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر، كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر.
لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر. لا لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن